Welcome to Winning with the Burns, a podcast for highly ambitious people who have a burning desire to learn what it takes to win at a high level. Hey, well, welcome back, guys. I'm excited today to introduce you to a great friend of mine who, traveled all the way from Kansas City to have some lunch and sit around and talk a little bit about our industry. So welcome, Andrew Kostus.
Hey, thank you very much, man. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just a little background. Let everybody know who's listening right now, where you come from, your background, and, where you at right now with a great company.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Kansas City, born and raised. Went to school down in Arkansas for a couple of years. And I always tell this story. I've been in insurance since right out of college. So I came back from school and my dad said, I'm done paying for you. You got to figure out something with your life. So I joined Americo thinking I would do this for 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year and see what happens. And that was early 2002. So 21 years later, still with an awesome company. So it's been a wild ride. Had a chance to work in multiple departments. Started out on the operations side and then moved over to the marketing side. So I feel like I have a pretty unique perspective of the industry because I've seen both how it impacts when we pay claims out and then also how it impacts how you get new agents started on writing good products. So kind of the whole gamut all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. So let everybody know, what is Americo? So if someone says, what is Americo? I see that on your shirt. Andrew, what do you do?
It's a great question. So Americo is, we always say it's the best company out there that maybe not everyone has heard of. So we're one of the largest privately owned insurance companies in the U.S. We're based in Kansas City, about 400 or so employees, A-rated with AM Best, and the Americo group of companies has been in business over 100 years. So the reason we like to talk about that is we think when you think about the insurance industry in general, you want a financially strong and stable company. And so when you have an A rating with AM Best and the group of companies have been in business over 100 years, that means we've had 100 years of experience in providing service to clients and also to agents. And that's really been our focus over the last 100 years. And more specifically, I know we'll get into this as we go along, but more specifically in the last 5, 6, 7 years, we really put a focus on really drilling into how quickly can we get a decision for a client and then also for an agent. And so we've kind of shifted the model from maybe 10, 15 years ago of doing more paper applications to trying to leverage technology to get a decision very quickly for the client and the agent.
And Americo's main focus is life insurance and annuities, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So we primarily focus on simplified issue, life insurance, and then also annuities as well.
So simplified issue, for a lot of listeners that don't know what that means there's no blood work, there's no physical. You get a decision based on MIB, script check, and whatever underwriting decisions you guys use to make that decision.
You bet. So our e-application is built to look at prescription history and to look at MIB and then look at the health questions. So we take those three things and in combination, we make a determination on the spot for you, yes or no, whether or not the client is a good fit. So we found that, again, from an ease of doing business, we have found that clients love the fact of, back in the day, you used to think about how it would take 60 days, 90 days to issue a policy. And there was, to your point, there was, blood drawn or urine samples, APSs, all of that. We've kind of gone away from all that and said in the simplified issue space, let's figure out how quickly can we look at the information and make a determination whether we can offer coverage or not.
Now, the portfolio you guys have, I think, is an incredible portfolio to where you're able to help somebody just on an accidental policy all the way to where you do have the annuity where you have retirement protection. But in between there's so many different life insurance policies that you guys offer in that portfolio.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things we've really tried to do was we've tried to look at it from the standpoint of when you're meeting with a client or a client reaches out to an agent, do we have a policy that's going to fit that client's needs? Because the reality is the clients have a lot of different needs now. Again, 15, 20 years ago, it was mainly just built on a death benefit. The need was, I need $10,000 or $100,000 or $200,000. And now the needs have really expanded out. So we have a whole portfolio of products of anything from just simplified term products to products that offer the client the opportunity to get their money back that they paid in if they don't use it, to permanent protection, all the way to annuities as well. So we try to really make sure that when an agent meets with a client, that the agent doesn't have to leave the Americo portfolio to find a fit for what that client's looking for.
And, we always, I've been in the business 18 years. So, when you think about the word life insurance, it's like, oh, I have to die in order to use my product. Oh, it's a death benefit. But Americo does something unique over the last few years that allows people to use that benefit while they're still living. Hence, a lot of people call it living benefits.
Absolutely. So when you think about, you teed it up very well, when you think about, again, 5, 10, 15 years ago, it was heavily driven on just a death benefit, and that pendulum swung to the point now where if you're a consumer and you're looking to purchase life insurance, the question is, what's in it for me while I'm living as well? So it's not just a death benefit, and obviously the death benefit's a really big piece of the life insurance process. But the reality is when you look at living benefits, a majority of our products have living benefits, which are critical, chronic, and terminal illness. So the riders that are included in the policy, in the event that, God forbid, you come down with a critical, chronic, or terminal illness, then you have riders there that you can work with our claims team to make sure that you know that you're covered for that. And the second piece that we've even taken a half step further in the last few years is we have what we call a cashback option. So what that means is that if you think about when you purchase a policy, if the client does not pass away and doesn't use the living benefits, and the policy is in force at the end of the period, they can get all the money back or 50% of the money back that they paid into the policy. So it's another form of living benefits. Again, when you think about from a consumer standpoint, they're always thinking about not only just a death benefit, but what else is in it for me. And so what we found, to your point, when you add the living benefits and you also add the cashback option piece, it really gives that client that sense of value that, hey, the policy I purchase encompasses everything I'm looking for, so I don't need to have 2 or 3 different products out there to try to fit the same need. I can get it all in one product.
Exactly. And I'm noticing, in the industry, a lot of people in the younger ages are attracted to those types of benefits because, to your point, you got someone who's young, they don't think they're going to pass away. Mm-hmm. So the benefit to them, they're like, oh, I'll never see that benefit. But offering the cashback option, offering the living benefits, critical, chronic, terminal illness, that's attractive to them because they don't have to have all these different policies. I've got it all in one policy.
You bet. Again, a while back, you would maybe have 2 or 3 ancillary products that would try to fit the mold to make sure that you got everything covered. And for America, what we want to do is we want to make sure that there's as much value as we possibly can build into each product to make sure that the client knows that when they're making their monthly premiums, that not only are they covered from a death benefit standpoint, they're covered from the living benefits. And I mean, again, to your point, when you're thinking about a younger clientele, if they have a 20 or 25 year policy, let's say even a 30-year policy, at the end of that 20, 25, 30 years, if they haven't used the policy, a lot of term policies just end at that point. And then it's like, okay, that's great. I had coverage all that time, but I never used it. With the cashback option piece, you're able to get all the money back or 50%, depending on which policy you choose, to come back to you as the client at the end. So it's kind of another benefit overall to add the value proposition of why so many clients are using Americo's products.
Well, and there's a lot of agents using the products because you guys have put so much emphasis and, you backed it up financially with the technology, allowing the agents to do an electronic application at point of sale, being able to use an email address or use a text message with a confirmation code with the client to be able to get that client enrolled in one of the products.
Absolutely. So if you think about, pre-COVID, so 2019, 20 to even early part of 2020, a majority of the life insurance sales that were being done were being sold face-to-face. And that's still true today, that there's still a lot of insurance that's being sold face-to-face. But the reality is in that 2 or 3 year window from early 2020 to now, a lot of agents and a lot of clients prefer to do things virtually. And I think we live in that virtual world now where maybe 3 or 4 years ago it wasn't as prevalent. And so one of the things we've tried to do is adapt with the times, because ultimately we want to make sure that not only do we have a great product portfolio, but we also want to make sure that the actual application process is as easy as it can be. And so when you're selling virtually with Americo, the feedback we're getting from agents and also clients is that they seem to absolutely love the signing process, because again, what happens is that the client would get a text message from Americo with a 6-digit code. They give you the code back, you put it in the system, that's their signature. So I think we've all been there before that, where maybe you were trying to be IT help when you were filling out an application, and you're walking the client through of, okay, sign here. Well, wait a second, what box do I check? How do I do that? And when you're doing all that, it's just taking more time and creating possibly some more confusion. So we wanted to streamline the process, again, with the end goal in mind of being the easiest company to do business with, that the clients appreciate it, and then also the agents appreciate it as well.
I think that's great because agents take the path of least resistance, and you get to spend a lot of time with agents. You get to spend a lot of time with a lot of executives as well. You get to fly over. To me, I feel like you got one of the best jobs. Obviously, obviously you have to take, a lot of the bad with the good, but a lot of the good is you get to sit around meetings, and sometimes you get to hear how great people are, right? They tell you how great they are.
Yeah, I've never met the number 2 salesperson, so.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, what would you say sometimes, because, you see difference in organizations. You see why one organization's winning, why one organization is probably not, winning to their potential. What would you say is the difference in you see, I guess, some attributes that you see why one organization will win and why one just kind of stay stagnant?
I think the number one thing, I know it sounds like a cliche, is work ethic. It truly does matter. The organizations that are winning at a really high level, if you saw the behind the scenes of how hard their agencies are working, how hard their CEOs are working, I think it would blow a lot of people's minds. Because they do an amazing job not only promoting their brand, promoting their organization, but if you saw all the work they're doing behind the scenes, the tireless, nights and tirelessly, sleeping 2-3 hours a night to make sure this is all going, I think it would blow a lot of people's minds. So I think work ethic is certainly a huge one. And the second piece is what we found is just being coachable or teachable. The reality is that if you think about the simplified issue life insurance, there's a lot of companies that do a really good job. But the one reason that so many people have been successful working with them is because they have a model that works. And so if you're willing to go in and say, you know what, I'm going to bring my hard work ethic in, and I'm going to sit down with you, and I'm going to learn your system and how you've been successful, and then I'm going to plug into it. And then once I get to a certain level, or once I get to a certain experience, then we can sit down and say, hey, here's all the stuff I learned, but what if we tweak this one little piece here? And I think one of the pitfalls we've seen is when people come in right out of the gate and they want to start tweaking everything, and they want to start saying, well, I can do this better over here and over here. And the reality is what attracted that person initially to the opportunity was the success and the hard work, and what they're seeing is the outcome of that. And so when people come in right away and say, well, I'm going to change your model right away, you're like, well, hey, this model's worked pretty well for me. Why don't you plug in and learn how it works? And then once you get some experience underneath you, then let's look and see maybe there's best practices or something we could tweak as we go.
Well, you said it best, is you were attracted to a system because it was working. So many people, they get attracted to things because they're working, and they lose the teachable and coachable aspect of, well, I originally came here, but now I think I know more. A guy told me years ago that the moment you think you've got everything figured out in whatever industry you're doing, that's when you need to quit, because you've ceilinged out in that industry.
You bet.
So being able to always be learning, that's an old cliche too, is, always be learning, to where if I'm coming in, if you had a Dunkin' Donuts, all right, and I'm like, hey, I want the system, I want the franchise, and then I get the Dunkin' Donuts going, and then I'm like, you know what? I think I can get better coffee over here, right? Let me change it. Well, why would I change something that works, that's been proven to work?
Absolutely. I think you're spot on with that. And again, majority of the people that plug into the system and come in and work hard, it really works. And, when you think about, hard work and then being coachable or teachable, the reality is that's also on the carrier side of things as well. When we talk about products and we talk about living benefits, cashback option, well, the reality is all that comes about because of conversations with yourself and others, because we go to you and say, what are you seeing? What are you hearing out there? When you're talking with clients every single day, what are the clients wanting? And so we actually are able to take that feedback back and take it back to our teams and say, hey, here's what we're hearing, here's what we're seeing, what can we do? And sometimes we can implement things, sometimes it's not in the scope of what we're trying to do, but we have found that the best way to be successful from a carrier standpoint and to be able to provide great products and great service is because of the fact that we're able to go to you and say, what are you hearing? What are you seeing? And how can we ultimately take that and implement it?
Well, it boils down to communication. That's everything. I think communication cures a lot of conspiracies. Communication and communication and everything is like, if we can talk about it, we can fix it. If we can have conversations about it, then we can make things better. But to your point, if I'm walking into something and somebody's successful, I'm going to listen to what they have to say. I'm going to hang on to every word and try to figure out how can I make it work for myself.
You bet. The old analogy, void of information, people make up their own,
So true.
And so that's why the systems that are in place with a lot of the successful organizations, they over communicate. There's constantly trainings, there's constantly meetings, there's constantly daily coaching calls, and being able to accept feedback, I guess, would be the third piece. It's one thing to be teachable or coachable. It's another thing to actually accept the feedback and implement what you're being told. Because the reality is a lot of people come into this business and they want to work hard and they want to provide an income for their family, but they don't know exactly how to do it. And so, but if they can take the feedback that they get from yourself or others and implement that and say, hey, you guys have blazed the trail, I'm just coming along and I want to, learn how to do it, and you implement the feedback and don't take it as criticism, but take it as feedback to implement, those, generally speaking, those are the individuals that continue to be successful.
Well, you take that feedback because you're humble enough to take the feedback.
Correct.
Where I don't know everything, so I want to learn what's going on. And you said one of the biggest things that I'm a big proponent in my business is engagement. Being engaged in your business. One of my leaders and mentors always says that you find me, you show me a leader that's engaged, I'll show you a business that's growing. Because if you have a leader that's engaged in their business, then that organization is growing in whatever aspect they're doing. But especially in our line of work, what we do, if a leader is engaged, that team is growing. That organization is growing by numbers.
You bet. And it's always the leading indicator and lagging indicator, right? So the leading indicator is all the hard, like the criteria we talked about, all the hard work, taking the feedback, being teachable, all of that's kind of the leading indicator. And then the lagging indicator, generally speaking, is going to be the end result, which is you're able to meet with more families, you're able to protect more families, which is ultimately, from a life insurance standpoint, why people get in the business is to be able to protect as many families as they can in their worst moment, to know that those families have a policy in place to help them. So,
well, you keep saying help, and that's what we do. We help families, prepare for one of their worst days of their life. And I think a lot of people that come into the industry, they have this false sense of, I'm getting into it for the commissions. They get that commission breath, as opposed to focusing on the help of, I'm truly trying to help this client. The ones that focus on helping clients, they make it long term. The ones that come in with commission breath, they kind of fall by the wayside because they got in for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. And I think I think that's why this industry has exploded, to be honest with you, in the last 4 or 5 years, is so many people are getting in to want to help others. And I think when you go in with that mindset, generally speaking, if you go in with the mindset of helping other families, then the byproduct of that is your family will be taken care of as well.
Well, don't get me wrong now, the commissions you guys pay out are great. But we do work hard to help those families to get those commissions.
You bet. And it is, and I think you hit on a key point. I think this is the most rewarding industry out there, but it's not easy. It is a lot of hard work. There's a lot of times where you're trying to, get a client on the phone, and you may dial multiple times to try to get them on the phone or try to reach out to them. You may have to reschedule appointments. Maybe you had it at 1:00 and they call you at 12:30 and say they got to reschedule. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this, but it is extremely rewarding when you make sure that family, who filled out that lead card or who reached out to however it was to your organization, that they're getting the coverage in place that they were hoping for when they completed that initial interaction.
Well, it's that resilient factor. That's in anything, I think. People get this false sense of, well, I got to make the same amount of money that Andrew's been making, for 20-something years. Well, you got 20 years experience versus I'm trying to do that in a week. I'm trying to learn that in a week.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely spot on with that. And again, the money will come, but the reality is if your focus is how many families can I help, then the rest of that stuff what I've seen in 21 years of doing this, the rest of that stuff tends to fall into place. if your priorities are right, of helping as many families as you can.
So let me ask you this. If somebody's looking to get into the industry, in the life insurance industry, what would you encourage somebody that says, this might be a good fit for you if you can do this and if you're willing to do this? What encouragement would you give somebody to say, hey, yeah, I'm going to take that leap. I'm going to get my license?
What's interesting is I think you have to be self-disciplined. I know, again, these are a lot of buzzwords and a lot of cliches that apply to multiple industries. It's not unique to just life insurance. But the reality is that if you're coming from a different opportunity, and maybe that opportunity felt more like a 9-to-5 job, or felt more like a corporate type job, and you're looking to look more for insurance or being an insurance agent, the challenge with it is you manage your own day. And for some people, they do a phenomenal job of that. And some people, it sounds really attractive. Well, I'm going to manage my own day. Well, now all of a sudden, when there's not someone telling you to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, or someone telling you have to be here at this time, the really successful ones block out their calendar. And if you look at their calendar throughout the day, it reads like almost like a 9-to-5 job of like, I got a meeting at 9, I got this at 10, I'm on this coaching call at this time, all the way through the day. So it keeps them busy and on track, because I think sometimes if I told you, hey, I tell you what, you're on your own devices and figure out if you want to do this or not, and let me know if you need help. Sometimes people are like, wow, this sounds really great until Wednesday and you haven't really worked. And it's, you're supposed to start Monday morning at 8, but, you're tired, you slept in a little bit, and then, you got on one call, but, then you decided to have lunch, and, I got to work out, so I'll go at like 2, and, oh, man, I got to pick the kids up. It's 3:40, and pretty soon Monday's gone. Well, I'll start again on Tuesday, versus having that discipline of saying, you know what, I'm going to treat this even more so than maybe I did in my prior experience or prior jobs, to really make sure that I'm tracking the right way to make sure. And that's what we've seen from really successful individuals in the industry.
Yeah, the best thing about being 1099 is you work for yourself. The worst thing about you work for yourself. And you said it best, being self-disciplined, always encourage people is, at the end of the week, based on your activity, based on your work ethic, would you have fired yourself? Would you? Great criteria. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, you didn't get the job done, you're fired. And if that's the case, then maybe you need to change up your work ethic. Maybe you need to change up your discipline to be more intentional with your schedule. You said it best about being on the calendar is, I'm intentional with putting stuff on my calendar because those are non-negotiables. I know that I need to do these things in order to get the results that I'm looking for. Having a routine, I've learned, is having a routine and a schedule to stick to, like that. It puts me in a position to where I can pretty much predict my results. We were talking about that earlier at lunch about, certain things is, if this number is here, then I know this number is going to be there, right?
You bet. And and especially in this industry, the right activity is always going to yield good results.
Yep.
But it may not be a one-to-one relationship as far as every day. Like there may be days that you work extremely hard and you've met with several clients or tried to, set several appointments and something just didn't work out. And then I think everybody's been there too, where you walk in, there's times you walk in and meet with a client and they purchase a Americo policy, and all of a sudden they have 3 friends that also would like Americo policies. So that one conversation turned into 3 or 4 sales. So, but the basis of all of it is activity. And that's, again, from what we've seen from successful agents, successful agencies, organizations, doing the activity, being self-disciplined and being coachable or teachable. We found if you do those things more times than not, it works out well for you.
Well, I love it when you said activity, but you said a word before it. You said the right activity. Because some people feel like, oh, well, I'm working. They do that busy work. You know, well, I'm at the office, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, or I'm in my home office, by my computer. I'm doing activity. Well, but you're not doing the right activity to get the results you're looking for.
I always use the analogy of, like, think about if you go to a gym. Like if you go to a gym and you leave an hour later and you're like, hey, I was at a gym for an hour, but you never broke a sweat. Technically, you were there. You check it off the list. You were there, but did you really maximize the time while you're there? And so when you think about this industry, whether you're, learning about products or you're learning about organizations or you're making dials, you're meeting with clients, as long as you're intentional about it and you're really trying to maximize each interaction or each piece of your day, again, we found that generally speaking leads to pretty good results.
Well, awesome. Well, any closing about Americo, if someone says, hey, why would I get a policy with Americo, or why would I want to be in business with Americo and help some families?
Great. First of all, thank you for the opportunity again to jump on. It's been a blast. I would say from an Americo standpoint, one of the things we really try to do is we try to build in as much value into each product as we can. We're not perfect at this, but we're working every day to continue to get better. And so we have found that from a consumer standpoint or a client standpoint, they love the value built into the products. They love the ease of doing business with Americo. From an agent standpoint, the feedback we consistently get on a daily basis is we're one of the easiest companies to do business with. And by easy, what that means is our e-application gives you that 100% instant decision. We have a great product portfolio. We have an amazing team in Kansas City that's there to help every step of the way, from introduction calls to questions about commissions, to questions about policyholder services, claims, anything of the sort. They're always there to help. So overall, I love doing these because, I've been in Americo 21 years. I never would have thought, 21 years ago, I would be sitting here with you today. But it's fun because it's a great company, and I love getting to brag about. I wouldn't have been in Americo 21 years if I didn't believe in what we were doing. So,
well, that gave you such a great foundation to really bleed blue for Americo, because you got to see it from the ground up. The way you work through all the different departments and get to see a different aspect of Americo.
You bet. It certainly was the most untraditional way to get into the sales piece of things. So, but if you're listening to this, what that means is you can come from operations and move into sales and be okay at this. So you don't have to have a sales background in order to be successful at this. You just got to work hard and have a little bit of luck along the way and see what happens. But yeah, great company. We take pride every day in trying to provide the best service we can. So, but I appreciate the opportunity of being on. This has been fun.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time, and home of the Super Bowl champs.
That is correct. Chiefs. And hopefully we're going to run it back again. We'll see. There's been some crazy moves in the NFL this year as far as free agents go, and the drafts. Actually, the draft's in Kansas City this year. I think it's in 2 or 3 weeks. So that'll be pretty cool too. Hopefully we draft some good players and keep it moving along. So
hey, keep winning, right?
Yep,
that's
what
it's
the goal.
All about.
That's the goal.
Well, hey, thanks again for dropping by.
Absolutely. Take care.
Yes, sir.